heard Pat speak when I was a member of the Rotary Club of Vancouver Arbutus, and I look forward to his visionary remarks today. On that previous occasion, he spoke about his efforts to create a fixed link to Vancouver Island, a network of roads and bridges which, playing hopscotch across the Gulf Islands, would connect Vancouver to the island without the need for ferries. Holding a BA in chemistry and an MD, medical doctor from UBC, and his PhD from Princeton, Dr. Pat McGeer is a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada. As Canada's senior national academy, the Royal Society of Canada exists to promote Canadian research and scholarly accomplishment in both of Canada's official languages, to mentor young scholars and artists, to recognize academic and artistic excellence, and to advise governments and non-governmental organizations generally on matters of public interest. The Royal Society of Canada recognizes leaders and their work in order to help them build a better future in Canada and around the world. And that's an incredible honor, Pat, and I know some of our members wouldn't be aware of the importance of that honor. And Pat is also a member of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, an officer of the Order of Canada, a member of the Order of British Columbia, recognized by the scientific indexing organization ISI International to be among the world's 100 most highly cited neurologists. He holds honorary doctorates from 4 institutions and is the author of more than 850 scientific publications. But Pat was also an all-star basketball player at UBC on the team that defeated the Harlem Globetrotters and played for Canada on the Olympic team of 1948. He is now in the UBC and British Columbia Sports Halls of Fame, but he's also in our meeting today. Pat served in the BC Provincial Legislature for 24 years, from 1962 to 1986, as a BC Cabinet Minister for 11 years, from 1975 to 1986. He is a founder and chief executive officer of Orion Biotech. Its first products are now in clinical use to treat macular degeneration and cancer. Its present scientific interests are in analyzing saliva to predict the future onset of dementia and several other chronic diseases associated with aging. His uncle, Jerry McGeer, as mayor of Vancouver, was responsible for the building of our present City Hall. But even without that ancestry, Pat is more than qualified to speak to us today about what he would do as mayor. So please welcome Dr. McGeer.
Well, thanks very much. I'm an, an old-style politician, and speeches by old-style politicians used to be listened to not for the content of the speech, but for the opportunities to heckle the speaker. So you'll have that opportunity. Feel free to heckle at any moment. So just a very short amount about my day job. We founded a company called Orion Biotech to develop a discovery we made that cancers require a new blood supply. And we had found out from work in Japan that people who had a particular fault in their immune system were a couple of 100,000 in Japan. And so we said, who are they? They said, we don't know. Why don't you know? Because they never come to hospital. All right, we want to find something that will put us on the same basis as those lucky Japanese. We found it. after screening 10,000 compounds, and eventually you will hear about that. But what I want to talk to you about today is the things that you can do to influence City Hall and therefore change the course of the city of Vancouver. What we want to do, as I see it, is two great things at City Hall that you can take care of. The first of these is to get City Hall and the bureaucracy the hell out of our private homes. For more than 50 years, we didn't need any inspectors messing around with what we wanted to do within our own homes. If we can get rid of that bureaucracy, that's going to be a huge start. The other thing we want to do is to get our property values down so that long-term people can continue to live in their own homes and not get kicked out into the valley because property values have soared. Of course, governments want the property values to soar, because if the property values soar, then their tax-based sources, whether or not the poor people can afford to pay those taxes or not. So if we can get City Hall the hell out of our homes, get our property taxes down, then it's going to make a huge difference to all of the people who live in Vancouver, and you can play an important role in that. Now, what has caused property values to soar? Vancouver, has become the money laundering capital of the world, at least of North America. Why? Because if you've made illicit money in China and you want to convert that illicit money into something of value, you buy real estate. That's the favorite method that people use for laundering their illicit money. Of course, once you do that, then you want to gain an advantage by flipping that asset to somebody else and making a profit. Okay, so what do you do to end that? Right now, the real estate transaction tax is a fraction of 1%. My proposal is that you increase that transaction tax from a fraction of 1% to 50%. So that if you try and flip a property that you acquired for $1 million, to flip it, it's going to cost you $500,000 to do that. That will make it very, very unattractive to try and flip property. What happens when you can't flip it? Oh, you go somewhere else to launder it. Once you take away the laundering, property values go down, home taxes go down, and people who have lived for generations in their own home can continue to do that. What do you do with city council? You just say, get out of people's homes. End that bureaucracy. No more inspection. Let people do what they want as they always have done within their own home. Money laundering disappears. Now, property values go down, much to the disappointment of the city government and the provincial government, but they just live with less income. If you want to do something and you don't have the income to do it, then you could do what Uncle Jerry did when he built City Hall. The depth of the Depression, everybody out of work, no money anywhere. Where was it? Well, it was in mattresses. So he said, okay, we'll build a City Hall and I will issue baby bonds to cover the cost. Immediately, the money came out from the people who had been hiding it, built City Hall in the depth of the Depression, took people who were out of work, put them back to work, all because he made it possible to spend money. If you really wanted to make a project go here in the city of Vancouver, just put it out to bid in a project. If you wanted to build, for example, a corridor out to the University of British Columbia, well, just issue bonds for that particular project. People would know what their money was going to be spent on, and if they liked it, they'd go ahead and support it. What can you people do? What you can do is you can put pressure on City Council. Shouldn't be hard. It's a divided and weak council. Once you get City Council to get its bureaucracy out of the homes, then we're going to have action that will really help all the homeowners in Vancouver. We want to help all those ordinary people that live in the east end of the city, that have soaring property valuation. Get that valuation down, get their taxes down, make it easy for them to live. Many of them retired, living on fixed incomes. They can't handle increased taxes. So this is what I'm here to speak to you about, hoping you'll do something. There's no danger for me, I'm not running for mayor. So that's the essence of my story. I haven't had any heckling. Okay.
Sort of two questions. One is then how do you exempt true renovator, person that knocks down the house, builds a beautiful new house, if they are normal Canadian citizens? And number two, if you're going to knock down the value of the house, all these people that have used every nickel of their income to support that house and were planning on using the house as their retirement, what are they going to do? You've just cut their assets in half.
Well, now what are they going to do when they've sold their house?
Move into an apartment or a condo?
And the prices of those are too high. You lose all the way around because the inflation has gone everywhere. But we're not there to protect the people who want to sell and move away. We're there to protect the people who always lived in that home. They want to continue to live in that home. They don't want to be forced out of that home because of high civic taxes.
I understand how the provincial government benefits on the property purchase tax, as you described. That goes straight into Victoria. However, won't municipal governments change the mill rate? If the property values go down, the municipal government still wants its money to feed its bureaucracy, and it's less about the value of the property and more about the mill rate that will be applied to the value of the property. So I think there's a weakness in the argument.
No, what you do is you kick them out. Anybody who wants to push the mill rate up, kick them out. Make it impossible for a person to run and get elected on the basis of increasing the mill rate.
Okay.
Now, right now, the city council is divided. The last mayor, Mayor Moonbeam, not a single person supported him, was able to find a seat on council. So your performance on council sticks with you. And my view of it is, if somebody said, I want to increase the mill rate, they get kicked out, they never get elected.
Okay, we got a couple more questions here, Wolfgang. Well, as everybody knows, I'm in the property rental business, specifically apartments. And I had to buy out my partner because he died, and I had to pay him $10,250,000 on the street apartment out in Victoria, and I had to pay $435,000 property purchase tax. And I can assure you that I'm not going to pay it because it's going to be passed on to the poor people that live in the apartments. So when you say slap on the 50% tax, you have to define and see on what. I had to, like I say, I had to buy out a partner here. I didn't want to because my partner died, and then I ended up paying him $10,250,000 and $435,000 property tax.
Yeah, what you do is, you get the property taxes down. What you want to do is reduce
This is
the
property
taxes.
purchase tax, it's not property tax.
Property transfer tax.
Property purchase tax.
Transfer tax. What you do is you increase the property transfer tax from 0.4% to 50%. Increase it 100-fold.
Wolfgang has to pay that
But,
on his
no,
father's
wait,
share.
hear me out. That's if you plan to flip it,
What's a flip?
sell it for profit
In what time frame?
within 3 years.
Okay.
You see, if you hang on to it for 3 years,
I was a partner for 40 years.
pardon?
I said I was in the project for 40 years, and after 40 years, my partner dies, and I gotta buy him out.
You're not from China trying to buy the property in order to.
But I'm from Germany.
My company transferred me to Winnipeg and I had to sell my house. What should I do then?
Just speak into there.
I just said in the case of someone who is working in Vancouver and just purchased a home, and let's say their company transferred them to Toronto, and they had to sell their home, you would expect them to pay 50% of the value of the sale to the company.
So, if you're smart, you'll quit your job.
Really?
If somebody tried to transfer me to Toronto, they wouldn't have me as an employee another day.
Well, that's a good position for you to be in, I guess.
No.
You're able to do that.
Look, if you're so good, you're needed there, you're gonna get a job here.
Okay,
Sell yourself short.
next one.
Dr. McGeer, as I understand it, our house taxes are pretty competitive worldwide, whereas our city's really sticking it to corporations for commercial tax. How would you holders and
Well, once the mill rate goes down, as it will, then their corporate taxes will go down too. So they just coattail on the homeowner rather than.
But you'd still see them paying that kind of 50% tax if they're selling in a short window?
Oh, absolutely. We don't want corporations in here flipping offshore people, flipping for as a method of laundering their money. Get rid of it. It's easy to do.
Okay, before we get into second questions, like Wolfgang asked one, here's Franz for one.
I'm not from China. And I think your suggestions are mind-boggling. If you own a house and most people have financing on the house, at least 50% the average. If you go and introduce what you say, we will all be bankrupt. The banks will come and foreclose. Who's buying the properties now? We are too highly financed in this city and all over Canada and the whole world. You can't reduce properties values by 50% by increasing stupid taxes. That's behind any human being logic.
If you want to comment, and then I have another question here. That's what I'd say. Do you want to speak for a sec to that?
No, I just reiterate what I've said before. And that is, our objective is to get property taxes down. And once property taxes are down, the speculation that has driven prices up will begin to disappear. People will carry their debt if they must, but the important thing is that people will be able to continue to live in their own home. We want to benefit as many people as we can, not to protect those who've had heavy borrowing.
Okay, Wolfgang has another one.
Now, the whole process is politically, we have to blame the politicians for it, because I've been business since 1957. The only time that I've seen where property taxes went down was in the city of Langley, where I own a shopping center, and Joe was the mayor. And I decided this is the guy that's got to join up with me. Start my business.
See, and this, Pat, and I'll tell you, I never really knew Pat. I just knew of him, and we were around at the same time. And I'll tell you what he's famous for. The good doctor said, eat 1 aspirin a day, right?
That's correct. You'll never, I mean, this is my professional life. We have a method now of cheating cancer of its blood supply. And so the cancer comes along, I need blood to support my growing cancer and all of the metastases. And we have a method of saying, sorry, you can't have it. So far, every person that we have treated with an inhibitor of blood supply is alive.
Does that apply to every cancer?
Every cancer, they all require a blood supply. Every single person who's done what we have said is alive the longest 2 years and carrying on. Every person who took their doctor's advice and said, this is nonsense, died within 2 months. So, look, we've got a way of preventing you from dying of cancer. You'll die of other ways, but it won't be cut short because of cancer. The world's going to learn about this before very long.
Is this related to the aspirin a day?
Aspirin is there to prevent, not to treat. The aspirin keeps your platelets slippery. Obviously, I take an aspirin.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we got a couple more questions.
What about the use of ginger? You're a strong advocate of that?
That's China.
Yeah, I give ginger anyway.
You do take ginger?
Yeah, not gonna do you any harm.
Yes.
It's a
Holy.
inflammatory agent.
Look at this, you're gonna be here till tomorrow. Look at, they're all just popping up.
So my husband has cancer right now, and they told us that he needed to get his bladder taken out, and he refuses to do any of that, and he is actually doing it a different way.
Come and see me after.
Okay.
We'll take care of it.
One more question.
Excellent.
One more question.
Let this lady first.
One short one.
How about testing the saliva for Alzheimer's? How do you do that? What lab do you go to test that? You mentioned saliva.
Yeah.
Saliva
Yeah,
test.
you spit in two. It's quite interesting that your life story can be told with a spoonful of spit. Because all of your genes are expressed in every organ of your body, including the glands that make saliva. And so if you take the product of that, then what you do is you learn what your genes are doing. And if the genes are misbehaving, you want to try and correct for that. That's what the saliva test is all about. And see me after we get a saliva. You want your saliva done for genes.
Yeah, I'll see you afterwards.
Okay,
You'll tell me the reason afterwards.
I will.
yes,
Yeah, okay.
good. Okay, and Pat, another one.
Dr. McGeer, what can we do in order to support your research?
What can you do to support the research?
Right,
Yours.
yours.
Medical research, not the tax research.
You don't need to support our research, but thank you for the offer. I'll explain to you again.
Yeah.
What our biggest problem,
Pat, if you hold it closer in order to write.
yeah. Our biggest problem is getting past regulators. Regulators don't care about your life and mine. Regulators care about the rules and their job. And so what we have to do to advance all of these benefits to mankind is we have to get past regulators. The worst regulator is the FDA. The next worst regulator is HPV. That's the Health Protection Branch in Canada. They don't protect. What they do is they extend the problem.
Heavily
Anyway,
subsidized by
we can-
lobbyists.
We can get past that. Oh, and by the way, in the United States, Congress is currently putting pressure on the FDA because the FDA is promoting disease rather than curing.
And they're well paid to do it.
Yeah, very, very good. And I sent the memo to President Trump to kick butt. He's doing it.
Tell them to take an aspirin.
Dr. McGeer, your thesis about taxes seems to assume that a lot of people are being forced out of their homes. And you mentioned seniors on fixed income, and it seems to me that the tax deferral, property tax deferral regime, which was forcing people out, you say is forcing people out of their homes, is an answer to everybody that is a senior because they can defer. And the only problem is if we go through with your proposal, we get those property values down, then for those people that have deferred their taxes, it could become an issue, because it does mount up.
You're absolutely right. The tax deferral system is a blessing because it saves senior people, but that deficit builds up. So, but not until the home is sold. So it's a very, very important protection, and I applaud it.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Phil. When I was in office, they started the tax deferral program in 1989, I think it was, Pat.
Yeah.
And I was violently opposed to it because what it did, it took away the senior people on fixed income, it took away their equity, so the second, third generations couldn't keep the house because the money had to be raised to pay off the government in due course. So I was always opposed to that, and I'm sure you're glad to hear that.
Give them, the next generation an opportunity, but don't coddle them.
We still have a couple of minutes, do we there, Mr. President?
Yeah.
2 minutes, 3 minutes. Come on, somebody come up with something. Oh, there we go. Verona's gonna give it to us, straight up.
I'm fascinated by your concept.
you were speaking about getting people out of the homes of homeowners, permits, inspectors, etc. How did they get in? And no, truly, I've lived in a whole lot of cities across Canada and various other places, and I've never seen anything as bureaucratic as Vancouver when a homeowner wants to do a little bit of this or that. I mean, I actually asked the city engineer, can I do this to my condo? And he said, oh, you'd have to, I've no idea. You'd have to put in a permit application. I said, would you send me one, please? He said, oh, no, I can't give you one. I said, well, why not? I can only give it to a contractor. I said, well, to get a contractor when I don't know whether I'll be able to do it sounds a little difficult. He said, no, don't worry, the contractor. Anyway, how did this all come about? And you're saying get rid of them. Have you got any more specific suggestions
no.
about how?
I'll tell you how it happened. It was Mayor Moonbeam who introduced it as a tax grab. That's the history. But when the time came to assess overall what he'd done, not a single councillor that was part of this in Vancouver was elected. They were all roundly defeated. Look, I don't mind saying, I think he was the worst mayor we've ever had. And I've said more than once that the way somebody could get a statue built at City Hall next to Uncle Jerry would be to undo everything he did.
I'm going to buy some aspirin.
Okay. I guess that's it for the questions. Thank you, Dr. McGeer, for coming to speak to us and sharing your perspective. The way we thank our speakers here at the Rotary Club of Vancouver is by making a donation to the Rotary Polio Plus campaign, which we've been working on for several decades to eradicate polio. And we're getting close. And we will be putting money into the fund to vaccinate about 250 children against polio. Thanks again for coming. And next week's program is another doctor, Dr. Brian Day, who has the clinic in Falls Creek that we've probably all heard about. He's a sometimes controversial advocate for patient access to a hybrid of Canada's health systems. And before we wrap up today, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and that's that our own administrator, Carolyn, her father passed away this weekend. So perhaps you could say a hello to Carolyn on the way out. And also, I would like you to rise, charge your glasses for a toast.
Jasper.
A special toast today for those two things that we all know we can't get away from. They are death and taxes. Thanks for coming and have a good week.
Yeah.